AITA for not canceling our long-planned trip because my mill scheduled surgery at the same time. My husband and I have a big trip planned for 5 weeks from now. It's a once-in-a-lifetime type of vacation, 15 days on the other side of the world, over 27 hours of flights each way. We've been planning and saving for it for over 6 months. Both of us work very stressful jobs and very rarely get the chance to take any time off like this. Never did on the last 12 years. My mill 70 has several health problems. She recently scheduled a complicated surgery for exactly the same time we'll be away. She knew we were away, we were not consulted about the timing. There's almost no other family around, and the few relatives who live about 40 minutes away either don't drive, have jobs, or simply won't help her during recovery. We don't have the option to reschedule our trip without losing a significant amount of money, and honestly, we suspect she chose these dates partly for attention or to create conflict. There were other possible dates. Now there's pressure on us to cancel and be there for her, but we feel that after all the time, money, and energy we put into this trip, and how rarely we get breaks, it's unfair to expect us to change our plans. AITA for deciding to still go on our trip. AITA for telling my 23-year-old daughter that she shouldn't purposely get obese. I 47F have a daughter 23F who's been in a relationship with her boyfriend 24M for about 2 years now. Before this relationship she was always an average weight, but in the time since she's met this man she's been putting on a significant amount of weight. I never thought much of it. I know how annoying it can be to have your parents butting into your personal life and especially commenting on your body, and it hasn't exactly gotten out of hand anyway. However, when her boyfriend was over last week, I overheard them in her room, talking about her recent weight gain, how he was excited about it, and I heard her specifically saying she wants to weigh about 350 pounds. This disgusted me, and the very next day I had a talk with her about it. I told her that what she was doing was incredibly unhealthy and she should stop, and that she should break up with this man if he wants to do this to her. She was furious, thinking I was purposely eavesdropping on her and telling me that I can't control her anymore since she's an adult. I have barely talked to her since then and she has spent most of her time at her boyfriend's. Am I the asshole AITA for not caring about my brother? My brother, 28M, has had a tough life. He spent time with bad influences and made plenty of poor choices. Recently he suffered a severe head injury and a traumatic brain injury. Thankfully he's almost fully recovered as the ambulance arrived just minutes after his injury. However, both before and after the injury he struggled with serious behavior issues, worsened by a mix of drugs, alcohol, and his condition. About once a week he has episodes where he screams things like, "I'm a fucking loser." We live with our mom, 62F, and it breaks her heart every time. He also has a history of stealing from me and my mom and lying about it. For example, I once noticed a $200 withdrawal from an ATM. When I called him about it, he only admitted to it after I mentioned involving the police and checking the ATM footage. He lost his job and claimed a friend caused it, but in reality, his odd behavior led to his employer asking for a drug test which he refused, resulting in his termination. Things have gotten so bad at times that even the neighbors notice. I've had to call the cops on him and physically restrain him to stop him from breaking things in the house. At this point, I'm completely exhausted. Watching my mom, who's over 60, cry as she tries to calm him down is heartbreaking. When he goes out, it's unclear if he's cooling off or looking for drugs. The next day he acts like nothing happened and the cycle starts again. Am I the asshole for not caring if my brother ends up in trouble? Honestly, at least in prison, he wouldn't have easy access to drugs and alcohol, even though he's already on probation. AITA friend ruined my night. Cross post from AIO in case anyone saw it their first lol. I 20-yo female, went out with my 20-yo male best friend last night. I'm a huge baseball fan and love going to games and decided to bring him along with me. I paid for everything, including two $40 tickets and the $40 parking pass because this night out was my idea. All week leading up to last night, he kept telling me how excited he was and how he hadn't been to a game in years. We laughed and chatted the entire 30-minute ride to the ballpark. Once there, he started acting up. He took one look at the crowd and told me how this was his personal hell, which I can understand. Baseball on Saturdays is packed. He started attempting to joke with people around us, calling them lame for coming there and asking if anyone had real lives outside of sports fans, which pissed a lot of them off. While walking to our seats in the back, he kept complaining about how much he hated it and how he doesn't even know baseball that well. When we sat down, he immediately started telling me to never bring him there again and how this was his own nightmare. He made fun of all of the player names as loud as he could, including our home team, sang obnoxiously because he was bored, and manspread along our bench seats knowing I was squished, along with the family next to us who weren't happy to be so squished either. Even when people, including myself, jumped for joy at home runs, he sat down and tapped his foot like he couldn't wait to leave. Once it hit the top of the ninth, I wanted to see the final strikeout in our win, but he pushed me out of the park. We got in the car and he told me I can't lie, I had absolutely no fun whatsoever. I would have rather been anywhere else but here. I gave him the silent treatment on the drive back, to which he explained he was overwhelmed and overstimulated from work and other things, and the ballpark just wasn't the right place for him. AITA for being really upset about this. I understand being overstimulated, but I was looking forward to a fun night, especially since he kept saying how excited he was, too. AITA for telling my husband his face smells like a baby's butt. Okay, so I see how the title might sound incriminating, let me explain. My 25F husband 30M has been using a shaving foam for quite a while that seems to not agree with his skin pH. While shaving it smells normal, well kinda as bad as most male marketed products do, but the dry down is bad. Somehow it smells a bit like the bottom of a baby. Base notes of baby cream and top notes of discomfort, weirdly lactonic as well. I worked with toddlers, that's where my reference point lies. And before you ask, that doesn't happen with other products. He's super well groomed and hygienic and his own smell is very pleasant. Anyhow, he shaves every 2-3 days since his facial hair growth is relatively slow and usually in the morning before work, so I didn't notice much, if at all. When he shaved on the weekends, I usually didn't want to point it out since I only smelled it once we got close. Now we were sitting together and I casually mentioned it. He totally freaked, is looking to buy a new one and flabbergasted as to why I never brought this up before. Plus, we recently went shopping in a pharmacy to restock all our products and he's pissed I didn't bring it up there. TBH, I kinda forgot, but also that would be an odd convo to have in a store, right? He seems pretty upset and doesn't want to get close. Am I the asshole here? Caught wife cheating after 15 years. M45 been married for 15 years to wife, 44, we have 2 kids and I don't know how to really start this, so here we go. Me and my wife were childhood friends, not like we were close cause. We really didn't notice each other much until high school after mutual friends started dating. And we saw each other a lot more after that. At first we were friends. And then after I grew a pair of nuts I asked her out and she said yes. A little confession, I had a crush on her before the friends started dating, but I kept it to myself. We started dating out last 2 years of high school and planned to go to the same college, but after figuring out that her school didn't offer the same program, I had to head to another one. Should have seen a problem when the school I picked had her same program, but she told me that it wasn't a place she's seen herself. We tried the long distance for a while, but I really didn't work, so we called it a quit while we were in college. After a few years, and I graduated from school, we surprisingly bumped into each other during a visit back home. Conversation sparked up a passion of interest, so we stayed in contact, talking almost every day and reigniting each other passion into each other, and it wasn't long where she had moved into my apartment. It did seem pretty fast now that I think about, but I can't lie, it just felt right at the moment. My career was going well, and she was just about to graduate for her degree, so everything seemed right. Now during this time she had a male friend that I called him, and he was extremely attractive, like, this guy is a player, and I kinda didn't trust him. Okay, I'll be honest, I didn't trust him at all, and I hated that my girl was his friend, and we had many conversations about this, and she promised me, damn near swore to God himself, that she had no romantic feeling for this guy and they were strictly friends, and that if I really trusted her that I wouldn't worry. Believing that I should trust her and know that she wouldn't do anything to sabotage what we are building. Not let's fast forward at this point. My work and home life is competing with each other. The kids need me for this, but I have this and that to do by the end of the week, and I'm not gonna lie, I made my mistake maybe leaning too hard on her or not telling her how much I appreciated her, but I always thought it was implied. So one day I come home from work, and as I walked in I hear her laughing and giggling. As I head into the kitchen I notice she was cleaning the dishes and him was sitting at the island talking to her. As I walked into the room, a slight quietness enter with me, almost like I was the guest in my house, but they both quickly greeted me, not suspiciously, but enough to fill the silence. Now me and him wasn't friends, but we had to have a conversation on my uncomfortable feeling about him and my wife, and it wasn't long or combative, it was short and simple. Looking back now, he probably got a good laugh at men, but after a few minutes he left and it was me and my wife, and now at this point I don't know if she was already with him, or she was just mad at me for not helping out a lot. But when I went in to get close to her or show her some intimate touch, she rejected me with, "I'm tired, had the kids all day." Or she would start a random argument about something that was so small. This has been happening for the last 6 months until I just got to the point and asked, "Is there someone else?" And this will hell broke loose. She called me every name in the book and even brought up some insecurities that I had, and if that wasn't a sign, she didn't talk to me for about a week after that. At this point I knew there was something going on, so I knew I had to figure it out, so I booked her a spa day on my day off and made sure she was completely pampered, And while she left the house, me and an electrician buddy placed small cameras around the house. Now, before you say, I wouldn't have done that, I would have left, and you're right, but I was praying that I was going too far. I was hoping that I'll record for a month or three, and see that I didn't get anything, and then know that I'm a dumbass with a great woman that loves me. She came home smiling and even gave me some attention. I thought that maybe the spa day was all she needed, some time to wind down. It was almost like back in the day while it lasted. So after 2 months of recording, I didn't find anything, and I was so happy, feeling like a dumbass for putting these cameras in my house. So I stopped watching the cameras for a while. They were just there, completely became out of sight, out of mind. Until one day I get a notification on my phone telling me that something in the house was ajar or something like that. So although I checked the cameras, since I can see if one of the kids had broke something as I flicking through the camera, I stopped on my front door, noticing a black pair of shoes next to another pair, as it didn't look like none of my shoes, just from what I can see. So something in me said go to the bedroom camera. As I look at that camera, there was no one in there, and the bed was still made. For some odd reason, I just kept flicking through the camera, and then I caught my wife coming out the laundry room with him. Behind her, she fixed her clothing, and he was buckling his pants. My heart shattered as I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Everything inside of me wanted to go home and kill both of them, I'm not gonna lie, but I thought about my kids, and how losing both parents won't benefit them, so I shut everything in my office, and ashamed to say I cried, can't say how long, but long enough where my eyes felt like they were swollen. And after that I knew what I had to do, so as I'm heading home I'm trying to compose myself for this argument that I know was coming. I called a friend of the family, and asked if the kids could stay over for a while, so that we can talk. They agreed, and as I arrived home, my wife was cooking, and I can still smell that food like a prisoner. Last meal, as I sat down, it was a silence. As I looked at her, I pulled out my phone and showed her the video of her and him coming out the laundry room, and all I said, why? At first she tried to lie, even with video evidence, but after a while pursuing it, she finally broke and told me the truth, that her and him has been sleeping together the last 3 years we've been married, and she could be pregnant with his child, and that she's sorry find out like this, but since it all out, she wants a divorce. It hit me hard, cause I came from a broken family and never wanted my kids to feel the struggle of separated family. But after hearing that, I got up and went upstairs as I felt defeated. I've worked my ass off and did all I could to place this family on a pedestal, and it felt like someone just kicked it from under me. I wanted to harm myself so bad when I figured that out, but God works in mysterious ways. Cause my daughter called me and told me that she loved me, not in those words, but it was what I needed to get better.